Who was the mysterious boy captured in a 1915 factory photograph? How could a child missing for years appear frozen in time, standing among strangers? What secrets lie hidden behind his silent gaze, forgotten by history or something far darker? Join us as we uncover a haunting mystery that refuses to be explained. Are you ready to see what the shadows reveal? If you want to follow real stories that defy time and reveal hidden truths, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our investigations. In the quiet corners of an aging historical society, buried beneath layers of dust and neglect, an old photograph rested, forgotten for decades. The image was taken in 1915, showing a group of factory workers gathered outside a brick building that had long since been swallowed by time. Their faces, worn and serious, reflected the hardships of early industrial life: rough hands, soot-streaked clothing, and eyes hardened by endless toil. At the very edge of this monochrome tableau stood a small boy, almost lost among the towering adults. He wore a flat cap that sat slightly askew on his head and a coat several sizes too large, the fabric hanging loosely from his thin frame. Unlike the hardened men around him, his expression was peculiar, a quiet stillness, almost haunting in its serenity. His eyes gazed past the camera, unfocused, as if he belonged neither fully to the scene nor the moment captured. The photograph was unremarkable at first glance, a simple relic of a bygone era. But for those who knew where to look, the boy's presence was an enigma. Why would a child appear in a factory workers' group photo, standing among men twice his age? And why did he look so detached, so out of place? As curators cataloged the image, they noted its fragile condition, yellowed edges curling with age, tiny cracks crossing the surface, and a faint graininess that blurred some details. The photo bore no name. No date beyond the inked 1915 scrawled faintly in one corner. Yet, despite its anonymity, it held a strange allure, a quiet invitation to uncover a story long buried beneath layers of forgotten time. The boy's identity was not immediately clear, but the photograph began to circulate quietly among local historians. Whispers spread about missing children, lost years, and the ghostly presence in the old factory photograph. The image, once dismissed as a simple historical artifact, was about to unravel a mystery that had haunted the town for decades, a puzzle piece that refused to fit neatly into the past. The photograph's quiet mystery deepened when a local historian named Margaret Ellis took a closer interest in the image. A woman in her late 50s with a lifelong passion for uncovering the past's hidden stories, Margaret was struck by the boy's face. There was something painfully familiar about his pale complexion and somber eyes. She spent hours comparing the boy's features to faces in the town's archives, searching for a match. Her persistence paid off when she stumbled across a brittle newspaper clipping from 1912. The headline read, "Local Boy Vanishes Without a Trace." The boy's name was Henry Caldwell, age 9, who had disappeared from his family home one autumn afternoon. Despite extensive searches and public pleas, Henry had never been found. The story of his disappearance had faded into local legend, a tragedy retold in hushed tones, but never truly solved. The resemblance was undeniable. The boy in the 1915 photograph was Henry Caldwell, or at least, he looked exactly like the boy who had vanished 3 years earlier. But how was this possible? The image was clearly dated 1915, confirmed by other details: the men's uniforms, the factory's facade, even the style of their shoes, all consistent with that specific time. Margaret's discovery ignited a spark among the town's historical community. Discussions turned to speculation, and rumors began to circulate. Could Henry have been living among these factory workers? Was he a child laborer? The idea seemed unlikely. The factory records contained no mention of any boy employed there, and no one recalled seeing a child in their ranks. More troubling still were the testimonies of elderly residents who had lived through that era. None remembered Henry after his disappearance. Some claimed he was gone, vanished without explanation. Others whispered darker possibilities, that he had been taken, or worse. The photograph challenged everything they thought they knew about his fate. The more Margaret probed, the more questions surfaced. If Henry had somehow appeared in 1915, what had he been doing during those missing years? Had he really been alive and nearby, invisible to all but this single photograph? Or was the image something else entirely? A ghostly imprint, a trick of light and shadow capturing more than just a moment in time. Determined to find answers, Margaret arranged for the photograph to be examined with modern technology. She hoped that enhancing the image might reveal clues invisible to the naked eye. What she uncovered would only deepen the mystery and unsettle the town's fragile sense of history forever. With cautious optimism, Margaret handed the fragile photograph over to a specialist in photographic restoration and digital enhancement. The expert, a meticulous man named Thomas Greaves, was accustomed to breathing new life into century-old images. Using state-of-the-art scanning equipment, he digitized the photograph at an ultra-high resolution, unlocking details invisible to the human eye. As the image was magnified, the surface imperfections, cracks, scratches, and yellowing became more pronounced, yet beneath them, new information surfaced. The boy's figure, once distant and blurry, grew clearer. His face was sharper, his features more distinct. His eyes, however, held an unsettling quality that sent a chill down Thomas's spine. They seemed deeper than ordinary, almost hollow, shadowed in a way that defied the lighting of the original photograph. Thomas's screen revealed subtle irregularities in the boy's clothing. The fabric of his coat, while threadbare and oversized, appeared oddly pristine in certain areas, as if untouched by time or wear. His shoes, too, bore strange details, scuffs and dirt marks inconsistent with the era's common wear patterns, almost as if the boy had walked through environments impossible to reconcile with the factory setting. Intrigued, Thomas zoomed further in, pixel by pixel, examining the boy's posture and expression. Unlike the men who stood stiff and posed with the seriousness expected of industrial workers in 1915, the boy's stance seemed relaxed, almost slouched. His shoulders drooped slightly, and his head tilted just a fraction, suggesting an exhaustion or resignation out of place among his stoic companions. One of the most perplexing findings came from the shadow cast by the boy. While every other figure in the photograph cast a consistent, well-defined shadow in the afternoon sun, his shadow appeared distorted, lengthened disproportionately, almost as if it belonged to a different time or space. Thomas tried to adjust lighting settings on his monitors, convinced it was a digital artifact, but the anomaly persisted. As the magnification reached its limit, new details appeared around the boy, faint shapes and lines that defied explanation. Some resembled ghostly outlines, like wisps of smoke curling around him, or faint echoes of figures just beyond the frame. These were barely perceptible, but their presence introduced a deeply unsettling atmosphere to what should have been a simple group portrait. The town's historical society eagerly awaited Thomas's report, hoping for clarity. Instead, what emerged was a catalog of questions that deepened the mystery rather than resolved it. The boy in the photograph, whoever he truly was, seemed to exist apart from time's normal flow. The enhanced image suggested not just an ordinary child, but a figure caught between worlds, an anomaly refusing easy explanation. Margaret and the society faced a growing dilemma. To share these unsettling discoveries with the public risked reigniting old fears and speculations. To hide them was to deny the haunting enigma that had quietly lingered for over a century. The photograph had become more than a simple relic. It was a silent witness to something inexplicable, an invitation to question what history truly held in its shadows. The more Margaret and the Historical Society delved into the case of the boy in the photograph, the more impossible the timeline seemed to become. The factory where the photograph was taken had well-preserved records, including employment logs, visitor registers, and local government documents, all meticulously archived. Yet none mentioned any child resembling Henry Caldwell, or any child at all, present on the factory grounds in 1915. Henry's disappearance in 1912 had been investigated thoroughly at the time. Witness statements described a lively boy, fond of wandering near the outskirts of town, but none could explain how he might have reappeared years later, unchanged in age and far from home. Family members, devastated by his loss, had accepted his absence as permanent. No new leads had emerged for decades. Now, to find him in a photograph dated 3 years after his vanishing challenged every fact known to the town's collective memory. Even stranger were conflicting accounts about Henry's age. The photograph clearly captured a boy no older than 10, yet Henry should have been at least 12 or 13 in 1915, if alive. There was no sign of growth, no passage of time etched on his face. This stasis suggested something unnatural, a frozen moment or a paradox that defied explanation. Efforts to verify the photograph's authenticity also intensified. Experts examined the paper type, ink composition, and aging patterns. Everything indicated the photo was genuine, consistent with materials produced in the early 20th century. No signs of manipulation or forgery were found. This was no modern trick or hoax. It was an authentic artifact from the past, bearing a mystery that transcended the ordinary. Eyewitness interviews added to the enigma. Elderly residents who had been children themselves during the 1910s recalled Henry as a real person, but none remembered ever seeing him after 1912. Some whispered that Henry had become a ghost, haunting the edges of the town, appearing briefly in unexpected places before vanishing again. Others spoke of secretive factory owners rumored to have exploited child laborers in the shadows, possibly hiding tragedies that never surfaced in public records. Margaret's investigation soon intersected with local folklore and paranormal tales. Stories circulated of the lost child, a spectral figure seen near the old factory ruins, especially on foggy mornings when the sunlight fractured strangely through the trees. These accounts painted a picture of a restless presence, trapped between worlds, unable to move on. Faced with these contradictions, the Historical Society confronted an unsettling truth. The boy in the photograph was not simply a missing child caught by chance. He was a silent witness to something larger, something that bent the rules of time and memory. Whether ghost or legend, Henry Caldwell's image refused to fade, anchoring the town's darkest mysteries in a single haunting frame. The photograph remained locked away in the Historical Society's vault, away from public eyes, but its legend only grew louder in whispered conversations. Some believed the boy was a ghost, trapped in an endless loop of time. Others suspected a far darker secret hidden beneath the town's placid surface. No matter the theory, one thing was certain: the boy's presence in the photograph refused to be ignored. Curators who had glimpsed the original negative described an eerie sensation. They said the boy's gaze seemed to follow anyone who looked at the image, his eyes heavy with a sorrow that transcended the decades. A few spoke of subtle changes during repeated viewings, small shifts in expression, a faint tightening of the lips, a quiet widening of the smile, as if the image were alive, breathing beneath its glass cover. Margaret Ellis continued her research, driven by a mixture of fascination and dread. She uncovered more about the factory's history, how, during the early 1900s, it was embroiled in controversies over labor violations and mysterious accidents. Official records were sanitized, but whispered accounts spoke of children working in secret, hidden away from inspectors, enduring conditions so harsh they sometimes disappeared without explanation. Further investigation revealed a pattern of missing children in surrounding towns during that era, children who vanished near factories, mines, or rail yards, their disappearances dismissed or ignored. Henry Caldwell's case was far from isolated. It suggested something systemic, a network of silence protecting unspeakable truths. One night, while poring over old diaries and letters from the period, Margaret came across a chilling entry written by a factory foreman. It spoke of a small watcher, a boy who appeared suddenly among workers and vanished just as mysteriously. The foreman's words hinted at fear, superstition, and an unspoken dread that the boy was not entirely human, but something else, an observer trapped between the living and the dead. The photograph, in this light, became more than a historical curiosity. It was a silent witness to the town's dark past, a ghostly reminder of lives lost and stories buried beneath layers of dust and denial. The boy in the image was a bridge between eras, between reality and the unknown, embodying a mystery that resisted explanation. As the years passed, the photograph's story continued to ripple through the community, inspiring speculation, fear, and a somber respect for the secrets it held. It remained a haunting testament to the fragility of memory and the shadows lurking just beyond the edge of history. And if you stare at that boy long enough, some say, you might glimpse a faint, fleeting smile, a silent acknowledgement of the mystery that endures.